What is up, YouTube? It's Xole, and we're back with another video. I recently got a comment asking me to make a video on how I do my drums in Ableton, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So the drums that I'm going to be showing you on this video are the drums that are in my newest single that I made with my friends. Me and my friend Ross have a band called Unfamiliar Keys. A few of y'all already know who we are because I've talked about our band before on this channel, but after we released our first single called Yesterday, we just kind of went incognito. By the way, you can stream Yesterday on all streaming platforms. The link is down below. After we released that single, we kind of just went incognito and we didn't post anything after that, but I have good news. We're back. We're working on a new album, and the song that I'm going to be walking through in this video is called Driving With You, and it's going to be out on September 4th at 12 o'clock a.m. if you want to stay up that late and listen to it. Yeah, the reason that I chose to walk through this song is because, I mean, first of all, I kind of wanted, to promote it a little bit, but second of all, I want to talk about both pop drums and hip-hop rap drums, and this song is poppy, so I'm going to be talking about the pop drums throughout the song until we get to a feature, and I got one of my good friends, LaTroy, to do a feature for us. So his feature, I have some hip-hop drums, some like rap drums, some trap drums. So yeah, let me give you all a quick little teaser of this single, and then yeah, let me just show you how I make drums in Ableton.
Flying down the road on Highway 84, that light still blinks even when you shut the door. My friends don't notice, nobody cares. The roads we travel are about who's there. She said, hold my hand with the windows down. You're looking so damn good when the stars come out. Oh, I'm driving with you, with you, and we're the only ones on the road tonight.
Alright guys, here is our song. I have the instruments right here, and then I have the drums all right here. The first thing that you're probably noticing right now is that I've gone dark mode. I have, I've switched to the dark side, guys. I'm sorry. I tried out dark mode and I realized I really like it. I used to rock light mode because, it was bright, but I think dark mode, once you give it some time, just a lot cleaner. So if y'all are like big light mode Ableton fans, then I am sorry, I've failed you. I've gone to the dark side. So one of my favorite things about Ableton is that you can store drums directly in the DAW. You don't have to open up folders and drag sounds in like that. You can just store them directly in, and I'm going to show y'all how to do that. So as you can see, we've got our instruments, our audio effects, our plugins, everything up here, but down here is the places, and this is where you want to open up your folders with your sounds. So I suggest downloading some sounds. You can download free sounds online. Just type in free drum kits. You can download sounds like that and then put it into a folder with the audio files, and you can just put it on your desktop. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go all the way down on places, click on add folder, and then from here you can just go to your desktop and then you can click on the folder that you need. I'm going to go over to Ableton Sounds, and this is where I keep all of my drums. So as you can see, I have closed hat, I have a folder for that, I have a folder for my cymbals, I have a folder for my kicks, I have a folder for my snaps, but I'm going to go down to Xole Sounds. So I've made my own drums. A lot of y'all already have them downloaded. I have a bunch of packs on my website, xolemusic.com. The link is down below. You can check those sounds out. We're just going to select this folder, so you're going to click this right here, and now if we go down, there we go. Here is our Xole Sounds, and it moves everything right here, and now we can just access all of these drums right here. So that's how I do my drums. And the way that I like to do my drums, some people like to insert MIDI tracks like this and then go over to instruments and do a drum rack. Give it a second. There we go. And let's grab this snare that I've made. Let's go over to our kicks. There we go. Snag that kick. and then let's go to our hats. There we go. So you can make your drums like this. So Control-Shift-M, create a MIDI selection. And you can do this if you wanted to. Just draw your drums out like this in a MIDI drum rack. There we go. And if you have Ableton Live Lite, this is a great way to limit the amount of tracks you have, because the way that I do my drums, let's delete this. The way that I do my drums is I insert audio tracks separately for every kind of drum that I have. So if I wanted to throw in a kick, I would just right click, insert audio track, go over to my kicks, find one, there we go, and then I would just drag it in like that. That's how I do my drums. If you want to use drum racks are great. Doesn't really take away from just doing what I do, so there's not a big difference. So the first thing that I do when I'm making my drums, I do this every time, is I find a good kick and snare pattern. So before I throw in hi-hats, before I throw in clashes or risers or open hats, I always find a good kick and snare pattern, because that's going to kind of, drive your beat. So if you have a good pattern for the kick and the snare, then your drums are going to just start off really well. Let's talk about this verse. So let's solo these instruments. There we go. So we have this going on. We're going to loop this section right here. There we go. So the first thing that I did is I just grabbed a snap, and that's going to be acting as our snare. So it doesn't technically have to be a snare, but it just has to be that, that sound that's on the twos. That's the best way I can explain it. So I'm choosing to use a snap instead of a clap or a snare. And as you can see, I'm throwing on a little bit of reverb, and then I'm taking off some of these lows because I want this snap to, not have a huge presence on the lows. Alright, after throwing in this snap, I was already feeling this beat, so I just threw in these kicks, and I was able to throw them in super easily because I already knew the general vibe of what I was going for. Let's talk about the kick and snare pattern for a chorus. Here are our instruments for the chorus. There we go, and I kept the same track that did my kicks for the verse. I kept the same track for the chorus, so here are our kicks. And if you have an 808 going on in your track, you usually want your kicks to mimic the 808. So if we zoom into this 808, you can see that right here, there is a new 808. Right here, there's a new 808. And right here, there's a new 808. So these kicks are just mimicking every time this 808 hits a note again. So I could have just grabbed my snaps from my verse and gone like this. But I wanted to add some difference because you usually want your verse drums to not sound the same as your chorus drums, because you want your chorus and your verses to have some, some differences to spread the song out. So instead of adding these snaps again, I threw in a clap. And this clap is just going to be different than the snaps, and it's going to make the listener be like, oh, this is the chorus. This isn't just the verse again. And just like the snap, I wanted this clap to be focused on the highs. And my kick obviously is going to be focused more on the lows, but I trimmed off some of these really heavy lows because I want my 808 to have some presence. Alright, that is our verse. Let's go over to LaTroy's part of the beat. So if we give a listen to the instruments. So it's just kind of a slowed down version of what the verses were. And then here is when the drums really come in on LaTroy's verse. we go. So, just like the chorus and the verse, I'm keeping the same track for the kick. So let's throw this kick in. And it's pretty similar to the pattern that I had in my chorus, but it has, just a few added 808s in there to give it a little bit more power. Alright, and my snare for this hip-hop version of this song is actually going to be a snare. So I first add this trap snare right here. Alright, I could have just called this a day and been like, that snare sounds great, but I wanted to add some reverb to it. And instead of just throwing reverb on this snare and making it a little muddy, because if I threw reverb on the snare, it would take away from that power and that grit. So what I did is I just threw in another track. Let's solo this track, actually. And it's like a clap, but it has a lot of reverb and it has a tail. So when you pair it with this trap snare, it's going to sound more like the trap snare, but it's going to have a little bit of a tail. Alright, there we go. There are our kick and snare patterns for every part of this song. So the next step that I like to do in my drum making plan of action is I like to add the hi-hats. So after I have the good kick and snare pattern, I like to add the hi-hats to just fill in that space that we have. So going back to our verse, if we solo our instruments and then our snap and our kick, this is what we have. So instead of adding a hi-hat right here, I threw in a little clicky thing. It's from Decap, it's on Splice, it's a little loop that he has, and I just chopped it up my own way, and these kind of act as hi-hats. So if I just solo this, you'll hear what this is adding to the chorus. I'm going to delete these audio effects, but this is what we have. So as you can notice, there is a kick in there. So we're just going to throw on this EQ8, which is a low cut EQ. So now it's not going to sound like it has a kick in it. And usually when you EQ your hi-hats, you want them to mainly be focused on the highs. So now I'm going to throw in some reverb, some auto pan to make it move around, some flanger to make it sound wavy, and then some drum bus to add some transients. Sounds great. Okay, moving on to the chorus. So the chorus actually has some real hi-hats. Let's solo the instruments, the kick, the clap, and then we have this MIDI track right here. And usually the reason I use MIDI tracks is so I can pitch some notes up and down, and doing that with your hi-hats is really good. But right here I didn't do that. I'll talk about how I did do that on LaTroy's verse, but right here I didn't do that. I just have a simpler. I threw my hi-hat into the simpler, and then it's playing this. I have another low-cut EQ on this, just like I had on those little, clicky things on the verse. So if we add the hi-hats in the chorus, and you definitely want your hi-hats to be very quiet because you just want them to kind of be there and giving rhythm to your beat. So I didn't stop there. I added another track for another hi-hat, and this one is obviously not being played as much as my other hi-hat because this hi-hat's, just adding a little bit of sauce. Alright, now moving on to LaTroy's verse. So we have the instruments. Let's throw in the kick. There we go. Let's throw in the snares. There we go. And here are the hi-hats. I have another simpler, and this time the hi-hats are being pitched around because, I wanted to give that hip-hoppy swing to it, the way you make these simplers where you can pitch notes up and down is you're just going to insert a MIDI track, go over to your instruments, go to simpler, drag it into that MIDI track. There we go, and then you're just going to go to your hi-hats or your snares, whatever you're using with this simpler, and you're going to throw it in like that. So if we go over to our hi-hats, as you can see, I have another low cut on my hi-hats. I usually always throw low cuts on my hi-hats because you don't want the hi-hats to have lows and muddy up your track because the lows aren't being used, so just take them out. Alright, if we throw these hi-hats onto LaTroy's verse, let's give it a listen. Alright, that is how I do my hi-hats. And now we're on to the last step, which is just the extra spice that you're throwing on your drums. So this is the cymbal, and cymbals are great because it introduces the drum parts. I also throw in open hats, which is great because it leads you into your snares. I also throw in little clicks and pops and percussions in there. And these little spices that you're throwing in here, this is what's going to make your drums catchy. So let me just show you an example. Let's go to our first verse. So we have our instruments, we throw in the hi-hats, there we go, we throw in the snap, and then we throw in the kick. And this could be great, but I threw in one little spice, which was a pop. So if you solo it, and it also has some delay, yeah it does. And I just want it to be focused on the highs, so the reason I throw this in is because the pop kind of introduces you into the snap. So I put it before the snap, so it's like kick, pop, snap. I'm going to show y'all the chorus though, because the chorus has the most little spices that I add. So we have our instruments, throw in our kick, throw in our clap, throw in our hi-hats, sounds great, but it doesn't have, it's not catchy enough. So we're going to throw in an open hat, which usually I put my open hats before my snares. So as you can see, this open hat is right before my clap right here. There we go, and you don't want to make your open hat before every snare like this, because the spice is supposed to be, it's supposed to be rare. You don't want a bunch of spice everywhere because then it doesn't make the spice spicy, So let's delete these extra hi-hats, and then we get into the clicks over here, which if I solo them, they're just little pops and clicks that go on throughout the beat. There's one. There's another one. So, they don't sound that great by themselves, but when they subtly are added into your drums, they sound great. Alright, and then we get into our cymbals, and our cymbals are very necessary, especially for choruses, in my opinion, because they're going to be, setting the beginning of that drum and being like, okay, this is the chorus. So let's add this cymbal right here. And that cymbal sounds great, but it doesn't really have that much presence, so we're going to be throwing in this crash right here. And there's another one right here. And then we're going to be throwing in some chimes, which is just little glittery sounds after the cymbal, which makes the cymbal's tail a little bit longer. Alright, there is the spice that I added to the chorus. Let's go to LaTroy's verse and let's give a listen to what I did over here. So there are the instruments. We throw in this kick. There we go. And then we throw in the cymbals. So it's the same cymbals that I used for the chorus because it just fit the song really well. And then we're gonna throw in our hi-hats and our snares. Alright, and then we're gonna throw in an open hat. And I threw some delay on this open hat to give it a little bit of a longer tail. And then I threw in this hi-hat loop from xole just to be on top of my hi-hats and give it a little bit more groove. Alright, there are our, spices for LaTroy's verse. I'm gonna give y'all a little taste of what his verse sounds like.
Hey, you know my gas light coming on, and I always use coupons. This car won't last too long, but I got you. My boo since 21.
I mean, I'm so excited for this single. Be sure to stay on the lookout. It's dropping on September 4th. Alright, so that is how I do my drums in Ableton. I hope this tutorial helped you. I hope you learned something. I mess that up every time. I hope you learned something. Be sure to stay on the lookout for our new single, Driving With You, featuring LaTroy. It's dropping on September 4th. You can go stream Yesterday, which is our only single out right now. So you can stream that up until Driving With You comes out. Alright. That's it. Have a good day.
Flying down the road on Highway 84, that light still blinks even when you shut the door. My friends don't notice, nobody cares. The roads we travel are about who's there. She said,